Have you ever felt like you're stuck on autopilot, doing the same old things and never quite feeling fulfilled? Imagine what your life could look like if in just 1 week you implemented 7 powerful habits designed to skyrocket your energy, sharpen your mind, and dramatically boost your quality of life. We're talking genuine transformation, not gimmicks or quick fixes, but practical, achievable steps that real people can integrate seamlessly into their everyday routine. Stick around till the end because the results are nothing short of remarkable. Whether you're battling daily stress, aiming for higher productivity, or simply craving a deeper sense of happiness and well-being, this video holds the answers you've been searching for. And if you're ready to break free from the mundane and start living the life you deserve, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. Join our community and unlock countless scripts, tips, and insights tailored to making life more meaningful and satisfying every single day. Life can sometimes feel like a whirlwind, with each day blending into the next in a blur of responsibilities, endless to-do lists, and the constant pressure to do more and be more. It's no wonder that so many of us wake up each morning feeling like we're already behind, desperately trying to catch up to some unattainable standard of productivity or success. I found myself in that exact situation not so long ago, exhausted, overwhelmed, and yearning for a meaningful shift. That was when I stumbled upon a set of principles that promised to transform my life in just 1 week. Skeptical as I was, I decided to give it a shot. I'm talking about 7 life-altering habits, which you might have heard referenced before in some form, but I'm here to assure you that the way I integrated them changed everything for me. It's one thing to read about best practices for a better life, but it's another thing entirely to commit to them for at least 7 days and watch the transformation unfold. In the original script, I discussed how these habits had a profound impact on my mindset, my day-to-day routines, and my emotional well-being. Even though I was initially reluctant because I had tried and failed to implement a dozen different routines before, something about taking these habits seriously for a short, dedicated period truly caused them to stick. Whether you are looking to supercharge your productivity, deepen your self-awareness, or simply bring some peace into your life, I believe these 7 habits can be adjusted to suit your unique circumstances. Maybe you're a busy parent trying to juggle childcare and work, or a student drowning in assignments, or someone seeking clarity in a hectic job environment. No matter your situation, these habits can help you carve out meaningful changes. But let's be realistic. Hearing or reading about life hacks often makes us think that transformation is simple, or that if we just decide to do better, everything falls into place. It's not that straightforward. True change requires consistency, patience, and the willingness to confront your own excuses. It's about showing up for yourself even on days when you'd rather curl up in bed. The beauty of this challenge, however, is that a single week of commitment can show you tangible results, which then fosters enough motivation to keep going. In my case, by the end of those 7 days, I felt the first glimmers of renewed energy and hope. And, let me tell you, I never looked back. In this 3-part expanded article, I'll take you through the entire journey. In part 1, I'll lay out the initial context and dive into the first few habits, especially the ones that had the most dramatic immediate effects, like waking up early and incorporating daily exercise. Parts 2 and 3 will explore the remaining habits, along with deeper personal stories, reflections, and practical tips you can adapt to your own life. So let's get started on this path of transformation. If you've ever been curious about how small tweaks to your daily routine could yield huge results, grab a pen and a notebook or open a new note on your laptop, because by the end of this, you'll have actionable steps you can begin implementing right away. Before diving into the specifics, it's important to understand why habits, and especially these particular habits, are so critical. There's a well-known saying that we are the sum of what we repeatedly do. Habits shape our days, and by extension our lives. They operate on autopilot, saving mental energy for other tasks. This can be a wonderful thing if your habits are healthy and productive: consistent exercise, mindful eating, journaling, focusing your attention on what matters. But if your habits are detrimental, like mindless snacking, constant screen time, or hitting snooze 3 times every morning, then the autopilot mode can sabotage your goals, eat away at your self-esteem, and keep you stuck in patterns that no longer serve you. That's precisely why consciously creating and refining your daily habits is so transformative. By making deliberate choices about how we spend our time, we gradually shift our mindset and our energy toward better outcomes. Imagine starting your day not with a frantic rush out the door, but with a quiet, centered morning that sets the tone for everything else. Rather than letting the day happen to you, you're stepping into a leadership role in your own life. That's a powerful shift, and it's often where positive change begins. Of course, deciding which habits to adopt is half the battle. Many of us get stuck in the research phase, reading about countless strategies: intermittent fasting, bullet journaling, phone-free mornings, digital detoxes, and end up overwhelmed. This is why the 7 habits I'll describe are designed to cover different aspects of life, from physical health, daily exercise, to mental and emotional well-being, journaling and limiting screen time. Integrating habits that address both body and mind creates a holistic approach. And the best part is, you don't need to be perfect or spend half your day doing them. Even small increments, 15 minutes of journaling, 20 minutes of movement, can yield surprising results. The key is consistency and genuine intent. When you nurture positive habits, they serve as building blocks for other good habits to follow. The discipline from waking up early, for example, can inspire you to use that time productively, maybe for journaling or mindful eating. One habit feeds into another, creating a ripple effect that can transform not just one area of your life, but several. I noticed that as I became more consistent with my morning routine, I was less inclined to waste time during the day, which then translated into better focus at work. There's a beautiful synergy when you stack good habits together, so while each habit stands on its own merits, they all complement each other, accelerating the pace of positive change. Let's move on now to the first game-changing habit, waking up early. And let's talk about the first habit that truly turned my life around: waking up early. I'll be the first to admit that I used to be a night owl, and mornings were my least favorite part of the day. The sound of the alarm was met with groans, hits of the snooze button, and a rush out the door that set a harried tone for the rest of my schedule. But one day I decided to flip the script. It wasn't an overnight success story, far from it. But the moment I realized the potential power of early mornings, I became committed to giving it a real shot. I started, somewhat drastically, by setting my alarm for 5 o'clock. And, if that's too intense for you, you can start by waking up just 15 minutes earlier than usual and slowly adjust. The biggest hurdle in the first few days was sheer physical exhaustion. My body protested this new schedule. I was tempted to slip back under the covers every morning, and I had to battle the self-talk that reminded me how comfortable and warm my bed was. However, I countered this resistance by giving myself something positive to look forward to in the early morning hours, like a gentle stretching routine, a cup of herbal tea, or a chance to read a few pages of a book before the rest of the world stirred. Gradually, I discovered that the morning silence was actually a blessing. The calmness of those pre-dawn hours provided a sense of clarity that was missing from my usual frantic mornings. One of the surprising outcomes was that I started to crave this quiet time. My mental chatter was lower, and I found space to reflect on what truly mattered. Mornings became sacred, almost meditative. Waking up early gave me enough time to prepare a thoughtful breakfast, something I rarely did before. I relished these small rituals. whisking my eggs, cutting fresh fruits for a smoothie, or even just taking a few extra minutes to savor the aroma of my coffee. These little details set a positive tone for the entire day, as I was no longer rushing or feeling frazzled. In time, I noticed I was more present and patient in my morning interactions, whether it was greeting a family member, roommate, or even sending a friendly message to a colleague. Moreover, I discovered something crucial: waking up early also improved my evenings. Previously, I would stay up late mindlessly scrolling on my phone or watching TV, which invariably led to poor sleep and sluggish mornings. Once I committed to early rising, I had to be more intentional about my bedtime routines. That meant turning off screens earlier, perhaps reading a real book, yes, a physical one, and giving my mind the rest it needed. As a result, my sleep quality got better. Instead of fighting my alarm in the morning, I began to wake up more naturally, sometimes even a few minutes before the alarm went off. If you're like me, you might think this is impossible at first, but trust me, your body can adapt in remarkable ways when you set consistent patterns. Waking up early isn't just about getting out of bed when it's still dark outside. It's about intentionally carving out time for yourself before the hustle of the day begins. In the original script, I mentioned how these morning hours became a magical period of stillness and clarity. Let's dig deeper into why that stillness is so beneficial. When you wake up early, you're not immediately plunged into the demands of work emails, family obligations, or the noise of social media. Instead, you can use that time to center yourself. Some people choose meditation, others do light journaling, and some might even indulge in a creative hobby like painting or playing a musical instrument. The core idea is to engage in an activity that nourishes your spirit, free from interruption. For me, the morning routine also involved looking at my to-do list or daily planner and prioritizing tasks. This quick planning session helped me feel in control of my day rather than at the mercy of it. By knowing what lay ahead, I could allocate my energy efficiently, tackle high-priority tasks first, and reduce that nagging feeling of constantly putting out fires. I found that my productivity soared because I was proactive rather than reactive. Additionally, my stress levels decreased throughout the day because I had already set a roadmap. There's also a deeper psychological component at play. Choosing to wake up early is an act of self-respect. It's a promise you make to yourself to dedicate some of your best mental hours to personal growth. When you keep that promise, day after day, it reinforces a sense of self-trust. You begin to believe in your own ability to follow through on commitments, which can have a powerful spillover effect into other areas of life. Maybe you'll start believing you can maintain a consistent exercise routine, or you'll have the confidence to pursue a challenging project at work. This self-trust is foundational for achieving any long-term goal. Another subtle benefit is the shift in your environment. While cities and neighborhoods eventually stir to life, that early morning hush is uniquely conducive to introspection. If you live in a household with others, it may be the only time you have complete solitude. Even the light is different. The glow of the sunrise can have a meditative quality that reminds us of life's beauty and constant renewal. If you choose to step outside for a morning walk or jog, you might find the air crisper, the streets quieter, and the entire experience more peaceful than it would be any other time of day. These experiences accumulate into something larger, a habit of noticing and appreciating small wonders. As you embrace waking up early, be mindful that consistency is key. If you wake up early on weekdays but revert to late nights and late mornings on weekends, you might disrupt your circadian rhythm, making the next Monday morning especially tough. Of course, flexibility is important. Life events and social activities happen, but do your best to keep a relatively stable schedule. Over time, your body will thank you, and you'll find that this single habit can set the stage for remarkable personal growth. Now, Let's move on to the second life-altering habit, daily exercise. The second habit that propelled my one-week transformation was daily exercise. Initially, this felt like a monumental challenge. I was someone who would avoid working out at all costs, often claiming I was too busy or too tired. Sound familiar? Yet, the moment I decided to move my body every single day, even if it was for 20 minutes, everything shifted. Let me clarify. This wasn't about running a marathon or hitting the gym for 2 hours. It was about small, consistent actions. Stretching in the morning, brisk walks in the afternoon, or short bursts of strength training in my living room. By ditching the all-or-nothing mentality where I believed a workout had to be a grueling 60-minute session, I opened the door to making exercise a non-negotiable part of my day. The initial days were undeniably tough. My muscles screamed in protest, and I had to fight the urge to skip workouts. But I remembered my commitment. Just 1 week, every day, no matter what. As the days progressed, a remarkable thing happened. I started to crave that burst of endorphins. My mood improved, and I felt a tangible reduction in stress. Exercise went from being a dreaded chore to a cherished form of self-care. When I began to see these changes, it was no longer just about physical fitness. It was about nurturing my mental and emotional health, too. One pivotal morning, I forced myself out the door for a short jog. The sun had barely risen and the air had a cool crispness to it. With each stride, I felt more alive, more alert. By the time I got home, I was both physically energized and mentally clear, ready to tackle whatever lay ahead. On other days, I opted for yoga or simple at-home workouts using minimal equipment. The variety helped me stay engaged, ensuring I never got too bored with a single routine. I also discovered that on days when I was particularly busy, even a brisk 10-minute walk during lunch could make a difference in my energy levels for the afternoon. Importantly, daily exercise also changed my relationship with my body. Instead of criticizing my reflection in the mirror or obsessing over a number on the scale, I began to focus on performance and how I felt. Could I do more push-ups than the day before? Was I able to climb stairs without getting winded? This shift in focus from aesthetics to functionality was liberating. I found myself celebrating small milestones, like holding a plank for a few seconds longer or increasing my walking distance by half a mile. Over time, these small wins built confidence and a sense of pride in what my body could accomplish. If you're at a point where daily exercise seems daunting, know that you don't need fancy programs or expensive gym memberships. Start with what you have and what you like. The key is consistency and enjoyment. If dancing in your living room makes you smile, do that. If you prefer hiking or cycling, carve out time for those. Listen to your body, push yourself gently, and appreciate the wonders of movement. Just like waking up early, daily exercise can spark a cascade of other healthy behaviors. And speaking of healthy behaviors, let's move on to the third habit, journaling, which tackles self-awareness and emotional well-being from a completely different angle. Journaling is one of those habits I used to associate with people who had endless free time or an affinity for poetic introspection. But let me assure you, journaling can be as simple or as elaborate as you want it to be. What matters is that it gives you space to process your thoughts, reflect on your day, and gain insight into your emotional and mental landscape. Over the course of my transformation week, journaling became the emotional anchor that helped me make sense of the changes I was experiencing. I started out by dedicating just 10 minutes each night to write in a plain notebook. I had no rules. Sometimes I'd write about what happened during the day. Other times I'd explore a fear or worry that had been nagging me. The act of putting pen to paper, or fingers to keyboard if that's more your style, helped me articulate feelings I hadn't even realized were bubbling under the surface. For instance, on the second or third night, I found myself venting about a stressful situation at work. By the time I'd finished writing, I felt a sense of relief, as though I had untangled a mental knot I'd been carrying around. One of the most unexpected benefits was spotting patterns in my behavior. Flipping through a few days of entries, I noticed how often I felt anxious when confronted with certain tasks. This awareness was the first step toward addressing the root causes of that anxiety. I could then strategize solutions or reframe how I saw those tasks. It was truly eye-opening to see in black and white how much my own thought patterns influenced my daily mood and productivity. Journaling acted like a mirror, reflecting back aspects of my personality, reactions, and thought processes that I might otherwise ignore or bury. Beyond self-discovery, journaling also became a platform for gratitude. Each night I'd jot down 3 things I was thankful for. Some days it was something big, like a supportive friend who helped me through a tough situation. Other days it was small but meaningful, a warm blanket, a good cup of coffee, or a moment of quiet reflection in the morning. This gratitude practice shifted my focus from what was lacking in my life to what was already abundant. Over time, that simple shift cultivated a more positive baseline mood and an increased sense of contentment. If you've never tried journaling, or if you've started and stopped multiple times, I encourage you to give it another shot, even if it's just for one dedicated week. Let go of the idea that your entries need to be profound or perfectly written. Let them be messy, raw, and authentically you. It's your personal space. No one else ever has to read it. Some nights you might write a single sentence and other nights you might fill pages. You'll likely be amazed at how much clarity and peace of mind can come from this simple act of introspection. Now that we've covered 3 major habits, waking up early, daily exercise, and journaling, let's wrap up part 1 by briefly reflecting on how they interconnect. Before moving into the rest of the habits in part 2, as I immersed myself in these initial 3 habits, I noticed they started to feed into each other in a wonderfully synergistic way. Waking up early provided me with the quiet space and extra time to exercise and journal without feeling rushed. Daily exercise, in turn, boosted my energy and sharpened my mental focus, which made my journaling sessions more insightful. Journaling helped me track these changes, recognize my triggers, and appreciate my wins, no matter how small they seemed. By the time the first week was over, these 3 habits alone had already made me feel more alive, more purposeful, and more in control of my daily life. In the original script, I emphasized how these habits catalyzed a sense of empowerment. And now, with this expanded dive, you can see more of the underlying reasons they work so effectively. They address both the physical and psychological aspects of well-being. It's not just about checking items off a to-do list. It's about fostering a lifestyle that nurtures you from the inside out. That said, the journey doesn't end here. There are more habits that proved equally impactful, especially when it came to how I related to food, technology, and my overall sense of mental peace. In part 2, we will delve into the 4th and 5th habits, which are all about mindful eating and limiting screen time. These habits tackled aspects of my life I didn't initially realize needed transformation, but once I incorporated them, it was like discovering a whole new level of self-awareness and discipline. So take a moment to reflect on how these first 3 habits might fit into your life. Could you start setting your alarm 15 minutes earlier tomorrow? Could you carve out a mini exercise routine in your schedule, even if it's just some stretching or a brief walk? Could you grab a notebook and jot down a few sentences tonight about how your day went and what you're grateful for? Small steps like these might seem modest, but they lay the foundation for lasting change. Take a breather, maybe get a cup of tea or water, and whenever you're ready, let's move on to part 2, where we'll explore how being mindful about our eating patterns and taking control of our digital consumption can dramatically enhance our sense of well-being. Welcome back. In this second part, we'll delve into the habits related to mindful eating and limiting screen time, two aspects of our day-to-day lives that often get overlooked in the hustle. We get so caught up in checking messages, responding to emails, and scrolling through social media that many of us barely pay attention to what we're putting into our bodies or how we're consuming it. If you think about it, food is fuel and technology is a tool. Neither should dominate your life in a way that leaves you drained or disconnected from reality. Yet many of us end up feeling perpetually busy, multitasking our way through meals as we stare into screens. This was me. I'd grab whatever was quick and easy, scrolling mindlessly through feeds while shoveling food into my mouth. Unsurprisingly, I was often left feeling unsatisfied and even guilty afterward. The good news is that with conscious effort, we can rewrite that narrative. Before we examine these two habits in depth, let's revisit where we stand. You've already seen how waking up early, exercising daily, and journaling can pave a path toward more energy, heightened awareness, and emotional resilience. The next habits complement those changes by addressing different facets of life. Mindful eating zeroes in on how we nourish our bodies, and limiting screen time tackles how we manage our mental inputs. Both serve to enhance mindfulness and self-control, which ripple into everything else we do. After all, how we do one thing often reflects how we do everything, so building discipline in eating can reinforce discipline in other areas, and reducing digital clutter can give you the mental space to make better decisions across the board. I encourage you not to skip or rush these two habits, because they don't just impact physical health or time management, they also affect emotional well-being and interpersonal relationships. By eating more consciously, you become more aware of your body's signals, fullness, hunger, cravings, which can reveal your emotional triggers, like stress eating or boredom eating. Similarly, by intentionally setting boundaries around screen time, you may uncover emotional patterns that lead you to reach for your phone for validation or to avoid uncomfortable feelings. Both habits can reveal a lot about your deeper motivations and triggers, making them powerful gateways to self-acknowledge. Let's kick it off by examining Habit 4, Mindful Eating. Mindful eating is a practice rooted in bringing your full attention to the act of eating and drinking, moment by moment. In the original text, I talked about the difference it made to actually taste my food instead of mindlessly chewing while flipping through social media. Let's expand on this concept. Mindful eating isn't about following a specific diet. It's about creating a deliberate and sensory-rich experience around food. Instead of wolfing down your meals, you slow the process, take smaller bites, and truly focus on the flavors, textures, aromas, and even the sounds of eating. When I first tried mindful eating, it felt awkward. I was used to eating quickly, often while standing at the kitchen counter or half watching a show, but I committed to just 1 week of it. So I set a small, simple table setting for myself, removed my phone and any other gadgets, and decided to eat a meal in total silence. With each bite, I noticed nuances in taste I had never appreciated before. The light crispiness of fresh lettuce, the subtle sweetness in a carrot, the comforting warmth in a bowl of oatmeal. It was as though someone had turned the color saturation up on my taste buds. The act of chewing more thoroughly also helped my digestion, and by eating slower, I found that I needed smaller portion sizes to feel satisfied. However, mindful eating doesn't mean you have to eat alone or always in silence. You can share a meal with family or friends and still be mindful by engaging in thoughtful conversation and pausing to appreciate the food. The key is intention. Are you using meal times to truly connect with the experience of nourishment, or are you feeding yourself in a rushed and distracted manner? Even in social settings, you can pause between bites, set your fork down occasionally, and take a moment to breathe and check in with how you feel. One of the greatest benefits I discovered was a new level of respect for my body. When I slowed down to notice how different foods made me feel, energized, lethargic, or bloated, I could make better choices. Foods high in processed sugars, for instance, gave me a quick high, but then left me feeling tired and moody. By contrast, a meal rich in vegetables, lean proteins, and whole grains provided sustained energy. Over time, I naturally gravitated toward foods that made me feel good rather than drained. This intrinsic motivation replaced the diet mentality of restriction and guilt. Instead of labeling foods as good or bad, mindful eating allowed me to tune into whether something was beneficial or detrimental to my well-being at any given moment. Mindful eating also forced me to face emotional eating habits. There were times when I realized I wasn't actually hungry. I was bored, anxious, or procrastinating. Becoming aware of these patterns was the first step to addressing them. Rather than reaching for a bag of chips, I'd take a quick walk, do a few stretches, or even just drink a glass of water, and wait a few minutes to see if I was truly hungry. This awareness has been life-changing, as it put me back in the driver's seat of my relationship with food. If any of this resonates with you, consider giving mindful eating a try for at least one meal a day, and watch how this small change can revolutionize not just your eating habits, but your self-awareness and appreciation for life's simpler pleasures. During my initial 7-day challenge, one particularly vivid memory stands out. I decided to prepare a simple meal of grilled chicken, steamed vegetables, and brown rice. Normally, I would have thrown something like that together, eaten it quickly while watching a show, and barely registered the taste. This time, I set the table, lit a small candle, and turned off all background noise. The first bite was an explosion of flavors. The chicken was lightly seasoned, but I could actually taste each herb, and the vegetables had a satisfying crunch. I noticed how the textures contrasted with the fluffiness of the rice, and even the temperature differences became part of the experience. By the end of the meal, I was not just physically full, but mentally and emotionally satisfied. This level of appreciation and presence carried over into other aspects of my life. For instance, I became more mindful in casual conversations. I started listening more intently to what friends and family were saying, rather than letting my mind wander. It's as though the practice of being fully present during meals trained me to be present in other scenarios. Moreover, I found myself getting less frustrated with daily inconveniences. Traffic jams felt less aggravating. Waiting in line at the store seemed more bearable because my mind was increasingly conditioned to slow down and observe rather than react impulsively. This shift is significant. It highlights how mindful eating can be a cornerstone habit that encourages more mindful living overall. Another surprising benefit was weight stabilization. I'd often gone through cycles of weight gain and loss, driven by extreme diets or bursts of strict exercise, but once I adopted mindful eating, my weight naturally found a stable equilibrium. I was no longer experiencing intense cravings or binge episodes because I rarely felt deprived. I allowed myself to savor treats in moderation. The emphasis was on awareness and enjoyment, which made cheat meals a non-issue. When I did decide to have something indulgent, I ate it slowly, enjoyed it fully, and therefore felt no guilt afterward. This is not to say mindful eating is always easy. Life can be hectic, and sometimes you have to eat on the run. But I learned that even a partial application of mindful eating is beneficial. For example, if I had to grab a quick lunch between meetings, I'd still pause for a few breaths before eating or remove distractions for at least the first few bites. Small reminders like these go a long way. Furthermore, mindful eating opened up a route to explore cooking as a hobby. I started trying new recipes and paying attention to the ingredients' quality and origins. Cooking became more than just a chore. It felt like an act of love toward myself and others who shared the meal. In short, mindful eating turned out to be about much more than just nutrition. It was an exercise in pausing and appreciating the present moment, a theme that echoed across all the other habits I was developing. And, speaking of habits that demand awareness and balance, let's discuss what might be the most challenging one for modern humans: limiting screen time. If waking up early was tough for me, limiting screen time was perhaps even tougher. We live in an era where our phones and devices are constant companions. They wake us up in the morning, serve as our work tools, entertain us with endless videos, keep us connected on social media, and even function as our wallets, cameras, and navigation systems. Breaking or even placing boundaries around this digital reliance can feel daunting, if not impossible. However, after repeatedly noticing how drained I felt from aimless scrolling and binge-watching, I decided to establish some concrete limits. In the original script, I mentioned setting a daily cap of 1 hour for non-work screen time. That might sound drastic, but remember, this was a personal experiment for 1 week. The first day, I was shocked at how often I subconsciously reached for my phone. I would grab it without even realizing what I was doing, while waiting for my coffee to brew, while standing in line, or during any spare moment. When I caught myself and resisted, I felt a brief pang of restlessness, almost like I was missing out on something important. But I also felt a surprising sense of relief, like my mind was finally getting a chance to breathe without constant input. Almost immediately, I noticed I had pockets of free time I didn't know existed. Instead of spending 15 minutes browsing social media here and there, I found myself with opportunities to do other things. I revisited old hobbies that had fallen by the wayside: sketching, reading a novel, or simply tidying up my space. When I felt the urge to scroll, I'd redirect that impulse. Sometimes I'd do a quick round of stretching or a short breathing exercise. It was remarkable how these small actions added up. My days no longer felt like they were slipping through my fingers in a haze of notifications. The impact on my mental state was even more profound. I felt less anxious and more focused. Constantly flipping between apps and notifications can fragment your attention span, making it harder to concentrate on any one task. By limiting screen time, I discovered I could immerse myself in a book or a project for an extended period. The sense of accomplishment that came from that level of focus was something I hadn't experienced in a while. Moreover, I slept better. Previously, I'd take my phone to bed, scrolling or watching videos until I passed out. Eliminating that nighttime habit helped me wind down more naturally and fall asleep more easily. It wasn't all smooth sailing, of course. There were moments when I felt isolated. Friends would talk about online content or trending topics and I'd be out of the loop. But I reminded myself that my goal was greater well-being, not constant social awareness. Over time, I found a healthier balance, reintroducing a bit more screen time but with boundaries. For instance, I might watch a documentary or a couple of episodes of a show on weekends guilt-free, but I'd avoid letting it spill into a 4-hour binge. As with mindful eating, the idea wasn't total abstinence, but mindful usage. Let's delve into some personal experiences and practical tips that might help you navigate this screen time habit without feeling like you're missing out on life or work. One of the most illuminating moments came midway through the week. I was on a lunch break, standing in line for a coffee. My habitual response would have been to pull out my phone, scroll, and check notifications. But I didn't have my phone with me that day, or rather, I chose to keep it in my bag. I noticed the cafe's ambiance, the hum of conversation, the aroma of roasted beans, the chalkboard menus with quirky quotes. I observed the baristas skillfully crafting each drink. It was a rich, sensory experience that I would have missed if I'd been glued to a screen. This simple act of presence reminded me that life is happening all around us, and it can be beautiful if we pay attention. Another personal insight occurred during a weekend. Before limiting screen time, my Saturday morning routine might have involved lying in bed for an extra hour, phone in hand, mindlessly checking social media, or catching up on videos. This particular Saturday, I decided to get up, put the phone aside, and head out for a walk in a nearby park. The morning light filtering through the trees and the refreshing coolness of the air set the tone for the rest of the day. I returned home feeling revitalized, more so than if I had spent that time staring at a screen. It struck me that the phone had often robbed me of these moments of peace, reflection, and genuine connection with the real world. Over the course of that week, I also discovered how limiting screen time opened up space for more meaningful interactions with the people around me. Instead of half listening to a friend while keeping an eye on my phone, I gave them my undivided attention. The result was deeper conversations, stronger rapport, and a sense that I was truly present for the people who matter. Not only did this improve my relationships, but it also made me realize how technology had been creating invisible barriers. I used to think I was good at multitasking, but in reality, I was only half there in many of my social interactions. For practical tips, I started by disabling non-essential notifications. It's astonishing how many dings and buzzes we receive daily. Turning off those notifications drastically reduced the temptation to keep checking my phone. I also designated phone-free zones in my home, like the dining area and phone-free times, such as the first and last hour of the day. If your job requires you to be available, consider using Do Not Disturb modes that allow urgent calls but silence the rest. You could also delete or hide apps that are major time sinks, making them harder to access. The goal is not to vilify technology, but to reclaim control so that you decide when and how to engage, rather than being constantly pulled in by endless feeds and updates. Interestingly, I noticed a direct synergy between mindful eating and limiting screen time. Many of us, including myself, have a habit of combining meals with screen-based entertainment, watching videos while eating, scrolling through social media, or even trying to work through lunch. This combo can lead to unconscious overeating and a sense of rushing through your meal. By intentionally separating the two activities, I found that I enjoyed my meals more and made healthier food choices. I also got a clear sense of when I was actually full, which helped me avoid that post-meal lethargy. Even beyond mealtimes, the principle of mindfulness underscores both habits. When you're deeply engaged in one activity, eating, walking, reading, or even simply having a conversation, you're living fully in that moment. By contrast, multitasking with a screen divides your attention. It's not that multitasking is always bad, sometimes it's necessary, but the issue is that many of us do it habitually, to the point where we never truly focus on anything. This scattered attention can bleed into our emotional well-being, leaving us perpetually distracted and never fully satisfied. Another connection between mindful eating and screen limits is the effect on mental clutter. Overexposure to screens can overload your brain with information, news, social updates, ads, etc., while mindless eating can overload your body with calories or unbalanced nutrition. Both are forms of overconsumption, and both can leave you feeling drained rather than fulfilled. Once you start practicing restraint and intentionality in one area, it becomes easier to apply the same principles in another. After I began limiting screen time, it almost felt natural to pay more attention to what I was putting on my plate. It was as though clearing out the mental noise from my phone freed up bandwidth for me to make better decisions about food, and vice versa. If you've made it this far, you can probably see how the habits we've covered, waking up early, exercising daily, journaling, mindful eating, and limiting screen time, are each powerful in their own right. Taken together, they create a supportive framework for living a more mindful, healthy, and fulfilling life. That being said, you might be wondering about how to maintain these changes in the long run. After all, it's relatively easy to try something for a week, but what about sustaining it over months or years? Let's move to the final paragraph of Part 2, where we'll briefly summarize these habits and set the stage for Part 3, where I'll share more reflections, personal anecdotes, and a deeper concluding perspective. By the end of the week that I dedicated to these first 5 habits, I realized that my daily routine had undergone a significant facelift. I was rising earlier with less struggle. My body felt more alive thanks to daily movement. My journal was filling up with insights and gratitude lists. My meals had become calmer and more enjoyable, and I no longer felt like a slave to notifications and digital pings. Each of these shifts felt like a breath of fresh air, and collectively they added up to a profound sense of well-being. Of course, daily life is never static. Work, family, social obligations, and unexpected events can disrupt even the most well-intentioned routines. The challenge, then, is to be flexible enough to adapt without losing sight of what you've gained. You may have to tweak your habits. Maybe some weeks you can only manage 3 or 4 exercise sessions, or you have a big project that keeps you online longer than you'd like. The important thing is to keep the spirit of these habits alive. If you lose momentum, that's okay. You can always pick back up where you left off. As you refine your approach, remember that these habits are tools meant to serve you, not strict rules meant to chain you. In Part 3, we'll step back and look at the broader picture, tying together all the threads of transformation. Though the original script refers to 7 habits, we've focused on these 5 core practices in detail because they encapsulate the heart of what truly changed my day-to-day life. Along the way, I'll also share final reflections on how you can maintain these improvements, some lessons learned from my experience, and why the real power lies in consistent, small steps rather than massive one-time gestures. Get ready to delve into the final chapter of this journey, where we'll solidify the insights and talk about how you can build on this foundation for long-term growth. Welcome to the final part of this expanded rewrite, where we'll consolidate everything we've covered and offer more personal reflections. In the original version of my story, I mentioned 7 habits that transformed my life in a single week, yet we've gone into depth on 5 major ones: waking up early, daily exercise, journaling, mindful eating, and limiting screen time. Regardless of the numbering discrepancy, these are the core principles that truly shaped my experience. You might wonder if we're missing any big secret that rounds out the number 7, but the truth is that each person might define their own additional habits, like consistent goal setting or practicing kindness and empathy, as equally pivotal. In other words, there's no fixed formula. The essence is that these are the primary habits that propelled my personal growth and set me on a path toward a more intentional life. At this stage, you might also be reflecting on how these habits interrelate. It's crucial to recognize that adopting them isn't a linear process. They often weave together in surprising ways. We've already touched on how mindful eating can be easier when you limit screen time, or how waking up early creates space for both journaling and exercise. This interconnectedness is what gives these habits their power. Once you commit to one, the others become more feasible, and the cumulative effect can be transformative. It's similar to how small streams eventually merge to form a river. Even if each habit seems minor on its own, their collective force can reshape the landscape of your daily life. Reflecting on my one-week journey, it's not that everything magically changed on day 8. Rather, I had enough tangible wins, improved mood, better physical health, clearer thinking, that I felt compelled to keep going. I often call that week my experiment. But really, it was a launching pad. A single week of genuine commitment can show you the potential payoff of these habits, which then provides the motivation to integrate them more permanently. And let's face it, change is rarely about a lack of information. We all know that exercise is good for us, that too much screen time is harmful, and that paying attention to our meals can benefit our health. The real shift happens when you see the benefits firsthand and can't imagine going back. Maintaining these habits beyond the initial trial period often boils down to two strategies: planning and flexibility. Planning ensures you're not caught off guard by day-to-day pressures. For instance, if you know you have an early meeting, you can adjust your bedtime accordingly so that waking up early isn't a struggle. Or, if you're keen to squeeze in a workout, you might pack your gym clothes the night before or schedule a run on your calendar. Similarly, if journaling is important, you can set an alarm or reminder in the evening to ensure you carve out those 10 or 15 minutes. Planning transforms good intentions into actionable steps, reducing the friction that can derail new habits. Flexibility, however, is what keeps you from throwing in the towel when life happens. Suppose your day becomes unexpectedly hectic. Your boss schedules an emergency Zoom meeting, or your child falls ill, or you get stuck in traffic on your way home. In those moments, you might have to shorten your workout or postpone journaling. That's okay. The essential thing is to recognize that one disrupted day or one missed habit doesn't mean you failed. You adjust, adapt, and get back on track as soon as possible. This mindset prevents a small slip from becoming a full-blown relapse into old patterns. Think of it as maintaining an internal locus of control. You may not control external circumstances, but you can control your response to them. Another obstacle people face is boredom or complacency. Once the initial excitement fades, the habits might feel repetitive. That's where variation and self-challenges come into play. If you're bored with your workout routine, try a new activity, like dance fitness, rock climbing, or a different yoga style. If journaling starts feeling stale, experiment with prompts or creative writing. You can also track progress in different ways, like writing down how you feel after each workout, or setting small weekly goals for yourself. The key is to keep your routine fresh and engaging, reminding yourself why you started these habits in the first place. When trying to sustain positive changes, accountability can be a game changer. Some people find motivation in sharing their goals and progress with a friend, family member, or even a coach. This accountability doesn't mean you're seeking approval from others. Rather, it provides a supportive structure. For instance, if you have a friend who also wants to exercise daily, you can plan virtual or in-person workouts together, exchange tips, or simply check in with each other regularly. The knowledge that someone else is expecting you to show up can be incredibly motivating on days when your willpower is low. Beyond one-on-one accountability, broader community support can also make a significant difference. Online forums, local clubs, or social media groups dedicated to wellness, journaling, or morning routines can offer resources, encouragement, and a sense of camaraderie. You can share milestones, ask questions, and even get fresh ideas from people who are on similar journeys. Be mindful, however, of how you engage with social media. It can be a double-edged sword. While online communities can be supportive, mindless scrolling is what we aimed to avoid with the limiting screen time habit. Striking a balance is key. Engage with intention. Participate in discussions that truly add value to your journey, and avoid falling into the trap of comparison or aimless browsing. From my own experience, having a small circle of like-minded individuals was a blessing. We'd exchange success stories, vent about our struggles, and hype each other up when motivation dipped. Sharing your journey not only keeps you accountable, but also transforms what could be a solitary effort into a communal adventure. It's reassuring to know you're not alone, that other people also stumble, and that progress is often 2 steps forward, 1 step back. When I had friends or family members comment on how I seemed more energetic or less stressed, it reinforced the benefits of these habits. Affirmations from people you trust can be a potent source of renewed commitment Reflecting on my own path, each habit brought a distinct milestone that signaled real progress. For waking up early, it was the day I found myself awake a few minutes before my alarm, eager to start the day. For daily exercise, it was when I managed a full set of push-ups without stopping, something I couldn't do before. With journaling, it was the moment I read an old entry and realized how much my mindset had evolved in just a few weeks. For mindful eating, it was when I caught myself genuinely appreciating each bite of a meal rather than rushing to finish it. And for limiting screen time, it was the day I spent hours enjoying nature and good company without once feeling the need to check my phone. These might sound like small things, but small milestones often reflect big shifts. Each achievement made me realize that change isn't about gigantic leaps. It's about consistently doing slightly better than the day before. Over time, these micro improvements compound into something substantial. Think of it like compound interest for your personal well-being. One day you look back and realize you're operating at a significantly higher level of mental clarity, physical energy, and emotional balance than you were just a few months ago. I also learned the importance of celebrating these milestones. Too often we dismiss our progress because it doesn't align with some grand outcome we have in mind, like losing 20 pounds or writing an entire book. But acknowledging each small win fuels motivation and builds self-confidence. I'd jot down little victories in my journal, like completed my first uninterrupted 20-minute run, or chose to eat slowly and actually tasted all my food. These notes served as encouraging reminders on days when I felt stuck or unmotivated. They also helped me see that progress isn't always linear. There are good days and bad days, but the overall trend can still be upward if you keep going. Everyone's life is different. Our work schedules, family responsibilities, energy levels, and personal interests vary widely. Thus, the exact way we implement these habits will differ too. Maybe you have a demanding job that starts early, so waking up at 5:00 a.m. is unrealistic. Instead, you could aim for 6:30 a.m. or adjust your bedtime so you can still get enough rest. Or perhaps you hate running but love dancing, so your daily exercise might involve a dance workout instead of a jog. The beauty of these habits is their flexibility. They are not rigid rules handed down from on high, but adaptable guidelines to help you cultivate a more conscious and fulfilling life. It's also worth noting that each habit can be scaled. If 10 minutes of journaling feels too long at first, start with 5. If an hour limit on screen time sounds impossible, try 2 hours. The key is to stretch yourself just enough to see meaningful change without making it so daunting that you give up. Over time, you can gradually tighten these boundaries or increase the intensity. For instance, once you're comfortable journaling for 10 minutes, you might find yourself eager to write for 20. Or once you see the benefits of limiting screen time to 2 hours, you might challenge yourself to reduce it to 1. Personal growth is an ongoing dance between challenging yourself and honoring your current capacity. In addition, don't be surprised if some habits require more effort than others. Some individuals find it easy to wake up early but struggle with mindful eating. Others might relish journaling but find consistent exercise daunting. That's normal. Our strengths, weaknesses, and life circumstances make certain habits more or less accessible. The important thing is to be patient with yourself and remember that mastery takes time. Treat each habit as a skill to be developed rather than a quick fix. Skills improve with practice, consistent effort, and the occasional willingness to fail, learn, and try again. One of the greatest lessons I gleaned from this journey is that imperfection is not the enemy of progress. Too often, we have an all-or-nothing mentality. We think if we can't do something flawlessly, we might as well not do it at all. This mindset is especially dangerous when you're trying to cultivate habits, because the path to success is inevitably paved with slip-ups and missed days. A single week might seem manageable, but life is complex. and any number of factors, travel, illness, major life events, can throw you off track. In my case, there were days when I just couldn't bring myself to wake up at 5:00 a.m. Maybe I had stayed up too late finishing a project or just felt under the weather. On other days, I skipped exercise because I had too many errands or felt a twinge in my knee. Early in my journey, I beat myself up over these lapses, which only made me feel worse and less likely to bounce back. Over time, I learned to be gentler with myself. Instead of seeing these lapses as failures, I reframed them as rest days or adjustment days. The key was to get back on track as soon as I could, without letting guilt or shame spiral me into giving up altogether. This acceptance of imperfection parallels a larger life philosophy. Lasting change is about consistency over time, not momentary perfection. Each time you pick yourself up after a setback, you reinforce your resilience. You learn a little bit more about what does and doesn't work, and you adapt your plan. This approach has served me beyond just these habits. Whether it's a creative endeavor, a relationship issue, or a career challenge, I now approach obstacles with a sense of curiosity rather than defeat. The question becomes, what can I learn from this, instead of, why am I failing? As we reach the end of this extensive rewrite, let's circle back to the essence of the message. Small, intentional daily habits can spark profound change in a remarkably short time. Whether we label them 5, 6, or 7, these habits, waking up early, committing to daily exercise, journaling for self-reflection, practicing mindful eating, and limiting screen time, encompass key pillars of a balanced life. They attend to our mental, emotional, and physical well-being, fostering a sense of alignment and control that many of us are craving in a fast-paced world. The original script ended with an invitation for you, the reader or viewer, to take these habits for a test drive in your own life. I extend that invitation once again, but now with even more encouragement and actionable insights. Try implementing one habit at a time or go all in for a week. It's entirely up to you. Track how you feel each day, note the challenges, and celebrate the wins. If something doesn't click, adapt it. If you find a particular habit resonates deeply, invest more energy there. The only rule is to keep an open mind and heart. Most importantly, remember that real transformation arises from consistent practice. Grand gestures are exciting, but it's the daily, sometimes mundane choices that shape the trajectory of our lives. We've walked through each habit in detail, explored the personal stories behind them, and uncovered their hidden synergies. Now, the next chapter is yours to write. Will you take the leap and commit to these simple yet powerful habits? If so, I'd love to hear about your experiences, your triumphs, your stumbling blocks, and the creative ways you make these habits your own. Together, we can create a community of individuals supporting one another in a journey toward greater self-awareness, wellness, and fulfillment. Thank you for reading this expanded version. I hope it inspires you to explore the power of these transformative habits one day at a time. Let's keep growing, keep learning, and keep turning our ordinary routines into extraordinary catalysts for positive change. Reflecting on this incredible journey, it's evident that transforming your life doesn't have to mean overwhelming changes. It's about mastering a few essential habits that fit effortlessly into your daily routine. From the clarity and calm of an intentional morning, the power and energy of daily movement, to reclaiming your peace from digital overload, these habits have the potential to redefine what happiness and success mean to you. My own experience taught me this important truth. It's never too late to start living your best life. But the conversation doesn't end here. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Which habit spoke most directly to your personal journey? Have you tried something similar before? Or is there another life-changing habit you'd recommend? Drop your comments below and let's discuss. Don't forget to subscribe so you can keep up with future videos designed to help you elevate your life, crush your goals, and find joy in every moment. Let's continue growing together.